York for a couple of seconds, but we shall continue the interview with Charles Manson at the California prison facility in Vacaville in just a couple of moments here. There is a man who's considered by prison authorities to be Charles Manson's closest friend in this world. His name is Nuel Emmons, and he has spent the last year researching and beginning to write the autobiography of Charles Manson, which will be called Manson by Manson. More than anyone else, Emmons knows when Manson is telling the truth and when he's lying. He is back tonight with us here in New York, and he's been watching the interview with us, and I want to get his views on what we've seen so far before we continue with Charles Manson. So we'll continue with Mr. Emmons from New York in a couple of seconds, and then go back to Vacaville right after this for the NBC television stations. Manson in the California prison shortly, but here in New York there's a gentleman who, in the words of some authorities, knows Charles Manson better than most people. His name is Nuel Emmons, who went to see Manson about writing a book a year ago, and they've spent over 300 hours since. We hired Nuel Emmons as a consultant for tonight's program, and he's here this evening to discuss the interview and help us understand what is going on in the mind of Charles Manson. Before that, Mr. Emmons, could you just briefly trace your relationship with Charles Manson? Where did you meet him, and how did you develop a relationship with him?
Well, I've had a similar childhood as Manson, only unlike him with nobody, I did have people. So I met Manson in jail in the federal prison, I guess, at Terminal Island in the middle 56 or so. And so anyway, not that we lined up together, but I was a few years older than he, but I did know him and smaller. And again, we were both repeats, so then I ran into him again in McNeil Island years later, 59, I guess. And I came home in 63 and since have straightened out my life. And after the family was raised and whatever, I began a writing career, mostly journalistic stuff, sports and newspaper items.
How can we tell when Charles Manson is conning and when he's on track? I was mystified by this man, as you know.
Well, and prior to the interview, I think that he felt that the questioning line was going to be a little bit different. And I have a rapport with Manson where we talk almost as normal as you and I are talking right now. And I think when Manson is really unsure of himself, uneasy, he performs. And then also, but as far as conning, he does con. He pulls your leg to a certain extent, but if you've noticed, he did not lie. He evaded when he did not want to answer. So that's a con or a joke in a way. He plays games with people. Have you and he discussed this evasiveness that surfaces in him from time to time? And is he more level when you're talking privately without cameras on than he was during this? Oh, very definitely. You've got to remember, we say a year, or you said a year, but it began in August of 1979 when I first began and renewed our acquaintance. And at first he denied me. The book wasn't his ideal at all. He resents being a victim, as he told you in the interview in several places, that he didn't do the things and it didn't come down as said. I don't think, in essence, Manson denies that he's guilty of things, and he knows that he belongs in jail. But the way it was convicted and came down, and in his mind, he has been served an injustice himself. But we have a very rational relationship. I mean, there are days when I don't gather any material, but I accept that and come back again another day. Have you gotten him to the point where he has admitted or discussed any complicity or planning in the deaths of the people in Southern California? Or does he shy away from it, as he did here when we got into this lobby Yankee? Well, there again, in this interview, he says he referred to you as a prosecuting attorney. I mean, in his thought, well, some of the questioning line was very similar to a prosecuting attorney's line, so he rebelled against it immediately. And we have our moments of rebellion, but yes, but it's his version, and it is contradictory to Helter Skelter. I mean, not the deaths. I mean, they're there for everybody to see and to know that it happened. However, there are many, many circumstances that sort of destroys the motive and the image and everything that previous books have put out about him. And if I might go on, well, that's where my book is motivated. It isn't in defense of Manson. I say not in defense. I think in the first portion of it, I do reach a certain amount of sympathy, just illustrating a childhood and how he was unlike me. I had parents that cared, and I had a trade and probably a better understanding. I don't say that the people in jail raised me like he does, and he is a victim of that. But I lost my thoughts. You'll have to come back to me.
No, you were saying that your book is not intended to be a defense of Manson or an apologia for him, but that you understand him in terms of his upbringing without a family, and you're sympathetic towards that. But then I think probably you part company as his story develops.
Right. Thank you. And anyway, well, he, by his own admission, he doesn't want to be, and he himself has become a considerable victim of the images. And you also said on your Wednesday night mention of the show for Friday night that you didn't find a mystic person or someone with powers. Well, the book brings that out very clearly too, and Manson also resents those earlier publications, and he feels, and I feel also, and I bring it out in my book, that more injustice has been done because of similar books. That particular book that we mentioned, Helter Skelter, has done more to create the image and the followers and everything that still persists.
Except that Helter Skelter just didn't come out of the blue. Vincent Bugliosi didn't make that up out of whole cloth. I mean, there was a lot of conversation that was tracked among the people involved in those killings where that thing kept coming out over and over again.
And none of it came out until Susan Atkins made her first confession. And then once heard, it's almost as Manson himself projects power of suggestion and so on. We've heard it before, and this is our best way out. And
do you think there's anything today, Nuel, like a Manson cult? Does he get letters, to your knowledge, from people who see him as a cult leader or somebody that they would like to pattern themselves after?
Only after reading the books that have been written previously. And he does get letters. The institution will verify it, and I've been recipient of letters. When my first media release on Manson was, I guess, March of '81, and the paper I worked for, the Ukiah Journal, well, naturally you don't give your own address, but I was a recipient of mail wanting to know how they could get in touch with Manson and so on, and other people's, other than the ones I got, right to the institution.
Have you ever gotten a letter from a purported Manson follower saying your book better be fair to him or else? Any threatening letters?
It's gone further than that. One particular letter to the Ukiah Journal was from Hawaii, so I answered it, what's your interest, what's your concern? And I ended up meeting the party that wrote the letter, and where were you at on this Manson thing and so on. And a little pride, or a little, I won't say pride, but a little vanity in my writing and a potential book coming up. I mentioned where I was at and what I was trying to project. She says, you're the luckiest son of a gun in the world. Because she was prepared to waste me if I was going to be more detrimental to Manson than the previous books had been. So it is an easy role, and I'm doing it for Manson as well as for myself. And well, there's a lot of things, because he says he's where he belongs in a sense.
Do you think he is?
Yes, I do think he is at this point, because he's probably bitter today than he was in '69 through the things that he's gone through.
Nuel Emmons, thank you for being here in New York tonight. We're going back to Vacaville, California, and more with Charles Manson right after these announcements.